I'm not sure limiting, just saying we just have 5, means that we can't do the kayak, does that mean we can't do the kayak lunch because it's not on the list of 5? I mean, I don't know.
Is the kayak lunch more of a budget? We did struggle with this last year, and I think we did a great job this year with revolving with this process. And I see a lot of the smaller budgetary items have been taken off. They're not large enough for us to be considering, and we don't want to waste everyone's time. But like the launch, I mean, if it's in the TIF, if it's TIF 3, and it's just, you just budget for it. So I don't know.
One of the things that, if I could weigh in, that I'd like an opportunity to do, because it's hard as a staff to respond to this list when you don't know kind of the direction you guys are trying to take. So I think it would be helpful to have, now that we have these 5, to go back to the staff and take a look at what's been put on there, to just talk about what some of those options are. The last meeting was so helpful for me because it really gauged some of the receptiveness from the group for some things that we just haven't talked about or had that opportunity to review it, so we might be able to come back with some of those.
I think you did that last year too. That was, we got to a certain stage and then you were able to kind of go back as a staff and do a little bit of reprioritization yourself.
Well, some things make sense to bundle.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's going to be more efficient on everybody's time to do it a certain way, or to, and an example of Hubbard Park would be that the launch and the railing. I don't think anyone wants the stairs up there the way that they are with the railing.
Can I suggest that we maybe, so we have 5 that we like, but can we maybe go through the list to say things we don't want to see go away? For example, comprehensive plan update.
Are we on the staff, like the?
I have one thing on the board stuff. And
Staff,
then
okay.
Well, go ahead. And then we can come back because I do think there's value in that.
I do too. I mean, that's our next step. I just want to plead with the board at the moment that we have been working on the welcoming ordinance and have talked about moving that forward as soon as conversion therapy was over. It's our community's main, objective for inclusion and diversity, and we've been working on it for, we passed the resolution, we've had attorney memos. To drop it and to go to a different diversity initiative, I think would be disappointing to the community. And I'm not saying it has to be one or the other, it can be both, but I don't know how that's gonna play out.
Where is that one? What's it under?
I know that Wes submitted it.
Or was it under board
This
ones?
is the,
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, I
I thought
thought it was.
business and community relations, maybe it should be a resolution. I thought we got referred it to come back to committee.
Yeah, there were a couple things from last
Right,
meeting like
yeah.
that they're not major initiatives in terms of fiscal and time.
Okay.
And they've already been looked at committee, or something similar has been looked at. So I think that we've moved a couple of things last meeting to committee.
yeah, I thought that's what we had talked about.
So I don't see.
Did we? Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure, because
Yeah, I didn't understand that it was moved to committee. I was still
Yeah.
evaluating within the scope of the initiative process. And this is me with limited understanding, you guys have been at the welcoming ordinance or whatever ordinance it was before for a period of time. But does it, is there, value in doing both of those? Because they have, I'm just thinking about from the short period of time, there's value in understanding the terminology and the language, and really just the education, so people are on the same page and can be supportive.
Right.
So if we could phase it, if we knew that those two were running together, phase it in so that you're starting with unlearning racism and how that unfolds in the task 1, task 2, but then fold in the welcoming ordinance,
Right.
so that there's a greater level of understanding that may help.
We don't have right now. Yeah. And we've also done, the attorney's already done the research and the legal opinion. So for me, it's sort of in the, and I guess we haven't officially had it at committee, but it feels like we have, because we've been having all these other things. So I think that I don't think it's an even switch out, so I'd rather just add welcoming ordinance, into that and have it be a natural flow.
In the minutes, it says that it should be referred to the Community and Business Relations Committee. The staff liaison for this item will be the village manager. not that those are approved yet,
Mhm.
but.
But, I mean, things that the committees are, how did things that we
It's the same
refer to
thing,
committees
right.
take,
It's the board.
how do they fit into prioritization, I mean?
Yeah, they'll need to be,
I
well,
wondered about that
just because
yesterday.
logistically we can't do everything at one time.
No,
It's
so
just kind
it'll
of
just
like the
be
list that I
in
have of
queue.
different
Yeah.
things that are in the
Yeah.
queue.
Isn't the racism, like having some kind of training and getting on the same page, wouldn't that be a precursor to the ordinance?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I was suggesting.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah,
And then
Um,
committee-wise, by the time we, in a calendar year, when we got to that point in the process, then maybe the community and business relations agenda would
Right.
move through our things so
Mhm.
effectively that we would be able to get back to that.
So you're always thinking about them. You know, the strategic planning and the TID policy is like an example of that. If we turn around to do that, like hoping that you guys would sign on. You know, last week was sending emails to the consultant saying, okay, I need a meeting so that we can convene, further define that scope, and then I can get planned up, teed up for meetings in January and
Yeah, like
February.
how do
I
you
know that
start?
that sounds far off, but
It's not far.
just to kind of plan out where things are going.
And that initiative, I always thought it was just going to CDA first, and then
Mhm.
the board members come, and then it's gonna be really hard to get everyone. I've never seen an initiative where we have committee and
I
village board,
know.
but
You're
anyways.
you know what, you're in luck because you're involved in one of the first meetings to finance scope.
I was just gonna say, the scope could be very large. I mean, we have a comp plan that we'll talk about in a second, and, we have an economic development, section in the comp plan that
Mhm.
I don't know what ours says right now. There's so many versions of plans out there that I don't know exactly which one I'm supposed to be looking at, but regardless, strategic planning for TIF policy is easy, it's like a page and a half. Strategic planning, which I don't know the scope of that, because we had talked about that, but that could be your economic development
Yeah.
element. That makes sense that the village board would work with city on, but the TIF
Mhm.
policy is,
It's kind of an outcome, you know, the financial advisors were like, listen, once you guys go through the strategic plan, the TIP policy actually gets really easy.
and
It's us understanding where you're headed and where your priorities
The
are
same
at
thing
and how
with
we
the housing
tailor it.
study. That'll fit into the housing component,
Correct,
so.
yeah. So wanted to hear more of your thoughts, you know, if it was supported by the group and further develop that. But I think that was just an example I was using. So some of these, like, we recognize as we go through the prioritization process that some of these are in development and incubation. I mean, that's why you guys talk about them as a group, because we don't wanna expend further time unless there's a general consensus that it's needed. So,
And I think it's good that going to trustee Aventa's, are we gonna look at the rest of them? I mean, the comp plan is timely, it has to be done in a year, and therefore, what are some of these things that fold into it? Cause we should be doing those this year. And it sounds like we did rank the ones that we needed to, but if there are any others that would fold into the comp plan, we should do those this year. I mean,
yeah, but
cause otherwise you're gonna be duplicating efforts.
can we talk about comp plan for a
Yeah.
Bart, you're up. We're gonna talk about comp
I
plan.
was just reviewing the economic development chapter real quickly, but.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Did
Gosh,
you read it to
you're
me?
quick. You're quick.
You're really watching BuzzFeed videos.
I know, really. So I'll just start a little bit. Housing, you know, we brought forward the CDA because we knew it would be an element coming up within the complex. The timing was also right, because we added a significant component of housing and we wanted to get a pulse on where that led us to for the market. Also in light of the fact that people continue to discuss affordable housing. So what does that mean? So at our next meeting for CDA, we're gonna be finalizing the RFP for the housing, study, I forget the formal name of it, analysis study. And then we'll be moving forward in January with the strategic planning, which would be, you know, what are our priorities for economic development.
Is that the market study? Somehow that got dropped from the housing study. It was supposed to be like a market study for housing and commercial, and it went to housing only. But the question of, we have the same vacancy rate for 20 years, so maybe that's the vacancy rate. Like, is there it's time to also look at, before you start economic development policy, what is the market? What's our market? I've never seen anything but focus groups.
We have not, it was focused specifically on housing.
Okay.
Not commercial, retail kind of.
Yeah, and I
Look.
don't even mean commercial, it's just, what is your market? I don't know how to do policy without that, but.
So Bart, do you wanna go?
So I guess to the point of the comprehensive plan, the plan commission met last week and did provide a recommendation, just in light of the current transportation plan that's happening right now being one of the chapters, most likely we'll get a lot of information on that. The CDA, as Rebecca mentioned, is going to be reviewing the RFP again for a housing, needs assessment and analysis, at their meeting next week. That would hopefully be done this fall, so we'll have that information for the housing chapter. Economic development, once again, could be covered within the strategic planning session. That sounds like it's just been prioritized or will be prioritized. And then the remaining chapters include, natural resources, which we have parks plans that we can incorporate, utilities and infrastructure, which we can incorporate long-range planning into. So we have a lot of the information. It's just a matter of being able to either hire a consultant or utilize staff with perhaps an extra person to bring all those under one large umbrella. There was discussion that public engagement is a necessary portion of the comprehensive plan, so that would be utilized to reconfirm those, larger goals within there, and then also to discuss the issues and opportunities section, which is where the meeting kicks off. So there was discussion, or the comp plan kicks off, there was discussion at the plan commission of incorporating or reviewing Vision 2025 to make sure that those overarching goals are brought along or modified as necessary through public engagement. So the recommendation for the plan commission was to go for an updated comprehensive plan incorporating those things rather than a full rewrite that would have to relook at each chapter individually. As we're talking about it, if the board wants specific emphasis within any of the chapters that has not been covered with what I just mentioned, we'd be happy to put that in the RFP or the scope of whatever we do pursue. But I think the thought was that the housing, transportation, and economic development chapters were the three big hitters, and all of them were getting a current review either now or in the near future. So those would just be wrapped into the comprehensive plan. And then based on that, the budgetary scope of that is roughly $30,000 for an update. That's what Whitefish Bay is currently doing. They're doing trying to simplify and just reconfirm things. They hired a consultant, or they hired their current consultant for additional work of just under $24,000. And the city of Greenfield is also hiring a consultant right now for $30,000 to reconfirm and update, as opposed to a full rewrite, which is costing $100,000 in many communities. So the direction or the recommendation from the plan commission at their meeting last Tuesday was to recommend the $30,000 range of an update incorporating those other plans within it. And yeah, Trustee Carpenter and actually Plan Commissioner Kelly Miller are both there, so if I missed anything, feel free to let me know.
Yeah, I think we said we could take a closer or individual look at things like the zoning map or zoning codes, but then we didn't have to reinvent the wheel for every chapter.
Yep, and that would be the land use policy, so yeah, correct. That was the one chapter that we said the Plan Commission could, really focus in on. So I think we can assign the chapters to either existing plans or existing committee work, and then just bring them all in with public engagement to reconfirm it at the end, hopefully.
So
Or
that's
beginning or
huge.
during.
I know that it's the smaller one, but say we hired a consultant and have some public engagement, that's a big, I used to write comp plans.
Correct, and we still could hire a consultant with this lesser version, so it is a big undertaking.
Is that something we can do in 2020, or is that something we should be looking at 2021?
We have to do it this year.
It needs to be updated.
Yeah.
Well, it's required by the state law.
So,
but
yeah, the penalty of not doing is that you can't,
Create a new order.
right, you can't modify your ordinances, because it needs to match the comprehensive plan, and if your comprehensive plan is
Zoning code is no
outdated.
longer valid.
I would argue it should be updated.
Well, then that's, okay, then,
I think we need to, that falls to me.
that has to go on the list then.
Right, when we're talking about like big, like last year, I know I'm gonna say the same spiel, but transportation study, capital budgeting, big things. I think that comp plan has to be, even though it came from planning,
Right.
it's just as large as
I
the
think we need to
boards.
acknowledge that there are some from your list, the TID policy being one of them, the CDA being, there are a lot of common themes going through multiple. So I hear you. I think that, I don't know if you need to kind of formalize it in the 1 through 5, but it's the recognition as a group that in taking these steps, you acknowledge that this is one of, overall, one of the large things that everyone will be working on, not just the board,
Yeah.
everyone feeds in a
lot of
part.
committees.
Well, it sounds like, we'll have something from the consultant on transportation and parking, but to make that a chapter of the comprehensive plan, someone is gonna have to massage that and do a little bit of work on it. So it sounds like we'll have the raw material, but we are still gonna need either Bart or a consultant to work on it a little bit. So maybe that's something as the housing study comes in, as the strategic plan for the CDA comes in, and as the we can do. But then there's still land use, which is the big one in zoning, right?
And I think
Land
with,
use map, not zoning.
yeah, with the direction of the plan commission, and it sounds like there's some consensus here, I'd be happy to put together a scope of what that looks like and just reconfirm how that looks prior to the budgeting, decision.
That'd be great. Can I work with you on that as the plan commission
Sure.
chair?
It sounds like that everybody supports, that we all understand that the comprehensive plan is in and of itself a priority because of the timing. And that some of the top 5 of this village board flows nicely into that. So it's not, so our top 5 doesn't add more work to that very important initiative. It actually lends support to it and would be a natural part.
Well, and that, kind of to piggyback off of that, my question to you was, so inclusive of the comp plan update, is, like, does that make it our top 6? That needs, I think we all agree that needs to happen this year. So, is there that capacity to do
Yes.
that with the other 5 initiatives that we
That's
identified?
how Bart's work plan's currently
Yeah.
structured.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
That's what I was trying to say, is that
Got it.
that's my
Okay.
understanding.
Okay.
So I guess for the purpose of this meeting, I'm wondering, we have, the top 5, so do we make a motion, do we?
you know what, I'm gonna list this
Yeah.
for action on,
Yeah.
August 15th,
Oh,
a
okay.
regular board agenda. My apologies, it was incorrectly listed for action tonight.
Gotcha.
July
Um,
or August.
Or July, what did I say?
August.
But can you tell I've been in too many different months this week, or today.